So let's look at conditional execution in Python. Now, the first thing is what is conditional execution? Now, conditional execution in any programming language means that you want to execute a part of the code only if some condition is true, else you don't want to execute a part of the code. Now, let us take a small example for that. Let's say we have two blocks of code. Okay, let me just make a block which represents a code. Okay, sorry. So let's say this is one block of code. Okay, and I have a second block of code, right? So the program execution comes till here, and you want to execute this block of code, which is, let's say I call it block of code 1 and block of code 2. So I want to execute this block of code only if certain condition is true. Let's say I'm asking a question here saying enter a password. Only if the password is correct, the program should execute this, or else the program should skip and continue executing from here. Fine. So this part of the code that we have here, this part of the code is supposed to be executed only if some condition is true. Right? So we have to put a condition check here and make sure the program flow continues in this line if there is the condition is satisfied or the condition is true. If the condition is not satisfied, if it is false, then it should skip this part of the code and come here. As an example, let's say I want common thing is ATM. So if a ATM pin is correct, then you withdraw money, right? Else you don't allow the withdrawal of money. So now you want to come to this withdrawal part only if the ATM pin that you entered is correct. So this is basically what a conditional execution in any programming language is. Need not be Python. All programming languages have similar conditional execution, right? So now the question is how does Python achieve this? How does Python do this conditional execution part? And what is the syntax for doing the conditional execution in Python? Right? So let's look at the syntax first. So syntax is very simple. You use the if keyword first. So the keyword before the block of the code that you want to execute, where you want to put the condition, you use the keyword if, give a space, or open a bracket. Either of them is okay. Then comes the condition, okay, which is basically a question which whose answer is going to be either true or false. Condition which gives output as true or false. Okay, and then so this has to be this can be anything. It can be a conditional operation, it can be a function call, it can be anything whose result is going to be a true or false. So, fine. Then close the bracket and then follow it by a colon operator. Go to next line, give a tab space, and then comes the block of code for if condition. All right. So now this tab that you see here, this tab space is extremely important now because in Python there are no brackets to indicate a block of code. Fine. So if you're programmed in Java or if you're programmed in C or C++, you would be used to something like this. You start a block of code with a flower bracket, end a block of code with a flower bracket. So this indicates to you what is a block of code in any other language like Java, C, C++. Now Python does not follow the syntax of brackets to indicate block of code. Python follows indentation to understand a block of code. So here, now this is what we see here. Whatever comes at this level of indentation becomes the block of code and for this if condition. So anything that comes after this indent, that is anything that comes from here, fine, anything that comes after this line, okay, sorry, anything that comes after this line, anything that comes inside this, all right, that becomes a anything that's inside this that becomes a part of this if condition, right? Anything that is not inside this, anything that goes behind this block of behind this indentation, right? Behind this indentation becomes part of the code which is before if. So it is not a part of if condition. It is a code which is does not fall under if condition. It's a part of the code which will be executed irrespective of if condition being true or false. Right? So that's the basic syntax. Now let's replace it with some more logically correct code. So let's say I ask the question, we just put the question that if X password is correct or not, right? So if I say the password is equal to is a condition. We've seen conditional operation where double equal to tries to verify if one value is equal to other value, and I say let's say password is 1234. So the question being asked is if the password, which is a variable, is equal to the value 1234. If this condition is true, now when this code gets executed, right? This part of the code when it gets executed, this will give you a result either true or false. So when password equal to 1234, is it equal to 1234? Yes. If it is equal, it will be true. If it is not equal, it will be false. Only if this value is true, then it will come to this block of the code. That is next line. That is, it will come to this block of the code and execute whatever you want to do. So let's say I want to allow the withdrawal of the money. So I can say, yes, you can withdraw the money. So let's say I put a print statement here. You can withdraw the money. All right. So that's a simple if condition, right? Now let's write a more full proper code in Python. So let me go to one of the programs. So these are some of the sample programs that we have. So let me take a very basic code. So here is a program. Let me undock this to make it full screen. Right. So you have this is the question. Write a program to take a number as input from the user and print the number. Right. So we are okay. This was the basic. This is not a conditional statement. Sorry, my mistake. Let me take this code. Yeah. Write a program to take a number as input from the user and print greater than 100 if the number is greater than 100. So we are saying take a number from user. This is the variable one, int, typecast it to int, take an input, enter a number. So this is the, we are asking the user to enter a number. Now if the variable one, whatever the user entered, is greater than 100, so this becomes a condition. Now we are asking a question. So as we said, the bracket is optional. You can put this inside bracket, or you can skip the bracket and only give a space after if statement. Both of them are okay, right? But a lot of us might prefer using brackets so that it makes it very clear what is the condition. Whichever you want to use, that's left to you, right? So if the variable one is greater than 100, so this is a question that we're asking. So this statement will result in either true or false. So variable 1, if it is greater than 100, I will get a true as the answer. So if it is true, it will come into this next line. You can see the presence of this tab space here. Right? So there's a tab space present here. And now Spider or Anaconda gives you the tab space automatically. Right? So if I start typing here, so you can see there's a tab, it starts printing automatically here. Right? So it prints, I'm printing that the number variable one using the format string kind of print statement is greater than 100. Fine. So that's a simple if condition. If keyword, a conditional statement, a colon operator followed by a tab space, and then whatever you want to do if this condition turns out to be true. Right. So that's a simple how if your if statement works, right? So let's take another small example on the similar lines. Let me take second code. I write a program to take a number, a floating point number input and print incorrect if it is not equal to. to 12.5. So we're asking the user to enter a variable which is a floating point number. So the input is being casted into float. Then if variable 1 is not equal to 12.5, so we are checking is the variable 1 not equal to 12.5, yes or no. This is a condition again, so it turns out to be true or false. Print that the number 1 variable 1 is not equal to 12.5. So that's the simple if condition we have put here, right? So now in both the examples that we saw till now, what we were doing was we were only doing a part of the code if this condition is satisfied. Fine. Now, if I put a statement behind this tab space, right? So here now you can see this print statement is not in the tab space, right? So now this means that this print statement will be executed irrespective of this condition being true or not. So now even if this condition is false, this print statement is going to be executed. Right? But this print statement is not going to be executed if this is false. Right? So that is because of the presence of tab space here and the tab space not being present here. Right? So that is how you differentiate between what is a part of your if block and what is not part of your if block. Now let me try executing this and see to just to show you the output. So I can say it is asking me to enter a number. I can say enter a number 12. So you can see the number 1 is not equal to 12.5 and not part of it. Both are being executed. Now if I try to execute the code again and enter a number, let's say 12.5. Now this is equal to 12.5. So you can see the first statement did not get printed, but that is not equal to 12.5, but the second statement did get printed. That this is not part of if. So you can see this did not get printed, but the second one did get printed, right? So the if statement is if the print inside if statement got skipped because the value we entered was not equal to uh, was equal to 12.5, right? So that's how you differentiate between what is part of if and what is not part of if. Now, what if we want to do certain code which is executed if this is true and execute some other code if this is false? So now if this is true, we're executing this part of the code. If this is false, then what? Right? Now this statement is not a part of this condition being false, right? Now this statement, this print statement, what we see here is irrespective of the if condition being true or false, right? Now this statement is executed if the condition is true. What if this condition is false? What then? Right? So if variable 1 is not equal to 12.5, I'm printing that variable is not equal to 10.5. If it is equal to 12.5, that is, it is this statement turns out to be false, then we can add an else statement which says else if the condition is false, then do something else. So I can say print it is equal to 12.5, right? Now, so this print statement is being printed if this condition turns out to be false. This print statement is being printed if this condition turns out to be false. Right? So again, repeat again. I'm printing this print statement if this condition is true, and if this statement is going to be printed if this condition is false. So the else, whatever is in else, is going to be executed only if the condition is false in this question. Now, whatever question is being asked here, if answer of that is false, then we'll come to the else. So it is never possible that you are going to execute this statement and this statement together. It is not possible logically, right? Because this statement can be either true or false. So if it is true, I'll come and execute this, and then this is going to be skipped. I will not do this else part. Fine. So if I'm executing the first print statement, that is I'm executing inside this print statement, then the second else part is going to be completely skipped. Now, if I'm executing the else part, that means I did not execute the first print statement. That means the if condition was false, so I did not execute the primary print statement, and I came to the else part to execute it. So always the if and else are uh, opposite to each other. If something is true, it is executed, else something else is done. Right? So that's how the if else works. So let's take another example to show the working of if else. Let's say, what is the ninth code? So write a program to take two floating point numbers as input, and the bigger number print the bigger number as output. So I'm taking two floating point numbers as input. Variable 1 is one floating point number. Variable 2 is second floating point number. Now we are comparing the two numbers if variable 1 is greater than variable 2. Now we want to find out which is bigger, right? So if variable 1 is greater than variable 2, then we will print variable 1 is greater than variable 2, right? Now if this is not true, if variable 1 is not greater than variable 2, then that means variable 2 is greater than variable 1, right? Assuming they are not equal to each other, right? So if variable 1 is not greater than variable 2, it automatically would mean that variable 2 is greater than variable 1. So if this is false, then that means variable 2 is greater. So I come to the else part and I print variable 2 is greater than variable 1. So either this gets executed or this gets executed, right? So obviously, both of them cannot be done together. You can't have variable 1 is greater than variable 2 and variable 2 is greater than variable 1. Both cannot be true simultaneously, right? So you can see how else works. So if this is true, I'm printing one statement. If this is false, then I'm printing a second statement. But please note that else also comes with a colon operator and a tab space. Both are required. Fine. So if a condition colon operator, a tab space, and then your block of code. Now, this need not be a single line of code. I can have any number of lines of code, all of them in the same line, right? As soon as I go behind this, it is not part of if, right? And else has to come behind this tab space. So else has to come behind this tab space because else is not part of a if condition, right? Else is a separate part. That is, if else is going to be executed if this turns out to be false, right? So I have a else statement here which stabs behind the tab space and else ends with a colon operator and then its own tab space present here. So whatever comes at this line of uh, code, this indent of code, that will be part of your else statement, right? So this is called indent, right? This is indent, right? So that's how indentation works, fine. So we'll take up a few more codes in the class, slightly more complicated ones to show how things work, right? Hope if and else part is basic, if else is clear, all right? Thank you.